Check. Sync. Been meaning to make this video for months now. My album Always Elsewhere came out back in May of 2024, and it is now February 2025. Kept putting this off because I'm like, I'm gonna get a better camera. I'm gonna have a backdrop. I don't know why I thought I needed that, but now I found a webcam at a thrift store for like $3 that is ever so slightly better than my laptop webcam, and I'm like, that is good enough. I wanted to make a Q&A video about the album. When I put it out, I invited a bunch of people over. We had an album listening party, and we had like a Q&A section of the night, and so I got questions from that, and also from Instagram. Got people asking questions, and just like questions friends have asked over the months. So yeah, I want to make a little video talking about the album. First up, what was the most fun scene to shoot in the Always Elsewhere video? I made that video with my good friend John Aguirre. We've been longtime collaborators. We've made multiple music videos together. We used to make music back together in high school. There is a sappy, cheesy, acoustic version of The Boys Are Back in Town somewhere on the internet, I think just on SoundCloud. Boys are back in town. By Garden Wall. And that is John and I forgot that existed until now. But anyway, the most fun scene to shoot. I don't know if this is the most fun. It's definitely the most exciting scene. His video assistant, I'm blanking on the name at the moment, but here it is. Shout out this man. He had a truck, and we were like, it would be cool if we got a shot of you in like the bed of the truck, and we're like driving around singing the song. So we're like, yeah, let's go like on the bridge so you can get like the skyline in the background. And in hindsight, I should have told him, maybe go a little slower, but didn't say anything. So he just went the speed limit, which was like 60. So I'm sitting in the bed of the truck, flying down the bridge, going like 60 miles an hour, and not gonna lie, I was scared for my life, but hey, whatever you gotta do to make the shot, So most fun, I don't know, but it was definitely the most exciting thing that we shot. Did you always know that Always Elsewhere would be the title track? Yes and no. Always Elsewhere was like the first song I wrote after my first album, Unmoored, which I wrote in 2020. I probably wrote Always Elsewhere, the song, like a month after that. I finished that album, and I knew it was something. It would probably be like a single, or I thought it was catchy. I thought that the title was good, but I didn't really think it would be like the album title. For a while, I thought my second album would be called Big Dog. And that's also when I thought of like having the cows as the cover art, me in a field with some cows. But yeah, I thought it was good to be called Big Dog, but I never wrote any songs called Big Dog, and like none of the songs on the album Always Elsewhere made any sense to call the album Big Dog, so that didn't happen. But once I wrote all the rest of the songs on Always Elsewhere, I kind of realized like the theme was all the different ways that I'm distracted and like pulled in different directions, and like my brain's just all over the place all the time. So I figured Always Elsewhere would be a good fit for that. So yes and no. So kind of is the answer to that question. What was the process in making the Ignorance Ain't Bliss music video? It was a long one, I'll tell you that. Growing up, my mom had this drawer of undeveloped film and like VHS tapes that I had never seen. So I thought as like a Christmas or a birthday gift or something, it would be nice to, develop the film and like digitize all the VHS tapes so we would have a way to watch them as a family. And at the Dallas Public Library, they have a free service where you can archive and digitize VHS tapes. So I did that. Shout out libraries, shout out the Dallas Public Library. They have the Heritage Lab, which is what I used. You just run it through a VHS player and it's routed to the computer and a video captures it. But it happens in real time. I digitized around 24 hours of VHS tapes. And it happened in real time, so I was just like sitting there, this was like multiple days of like, I probably did it like 8 hours straight, so like multiple 8-hour days of just like sitting there, digitizing these videos. And while I was watching them, I had my journal and I was like time stamping interesting moments on specific tapes. That way I could like reference them later. As I was going through it, I was like, oh, this could be a cool idea for a music video, just like splicing these together. I think they're in this journal, actually. Yeah. So stuff like this. These are my notes of that journey, just like watching and like titling the tapes and like time stamping them and stuff like that. So it took a long time, but I'm glad I time stamped them, because once I was like, I put them all in like a timeline in DaVinci Resolve because it's free. And just like cut out the parts that I wanted. I would like make notes to myself like, this would be cool at this moment of the song because of these lyrics or whatever reason. Put them on a timeline, spliced them out, rearranged, reordered until it like felt right, until like the pacing was good. And when I was like recording some of the tapes, sometimes I would just like mess around and like fast forward or rewind or like pause them or stop them, to have those like VHS artifacts of like the fuzz and the warping of the tape and stuff like that, to give it kind of like the feeling as if all of this was one tape and you're watching it. Yeah, so that was the process. It was very long, but it was very like an emotional thing, because I hadn't seen a lot of these things before, and they're just like old videos of me as a kid, or my sister, or my parents, or my baby brother, or like before I was born, so stuff I didn't even like know happened. Old houses we used to live in, and so stuff like that. It was really cool. I cried a lot, and at the album release party we watched the video, and my family was there, and they were crying, and I saw them, and then I was crying, and then people were asking me questions after, and I was like, just crying. So what is the significance of cows in the album art and videos? I got asked this question a lot. And kind of what I was saying earlier, I thought the album was going to be called Big Dog, and I just like had the idea to have the cows, like me in a field with cows, as like the cover art for some reason, because I was like, haha, they're like big dogs, but they're cows. And that was like the impetus of like the idea for the art. But after the album was made, I kind of made the connection of like, a lot of the songs sing about how we're like pulled in all these directions, and a large part of that is like from having to work for money to not die. What other animal, other than humans, is exploited so much for capitalism than like cows? Like in they're raised for meat. We extract their milk, we take away their babies in order to get the milk. Kind of a darker, not like on the surface connection to the cows, but like, and again, I wasn't thinking about that at the time. It's just like a connection I made after the fact. And I just like cows. My grandparents growing up, they just had like a pet cow. They had like a couple acres of land, and they just liked to have animals. They had a pet cow named Katie. She was so sweet. I always thought of her as like a pet. I never thought of her as like something for milk, or they weren't raising her to like eat her or anything. It was just a part of the family. I saw her like the way we see our family dog, and yeah, she was super sweet. So I've always loved cows since I was a whippersnapper. So just kind of like a coincidental connection that was made after the fact. It was just like I wanted cows on the cover, and it kind of made sense with the album. And that's kind of something that happened in like multiple times on like making the album. I would do something that like felt intuitively right, even though if I didn't have a like coherent reason for it. Another moment where something like that happened is when I wrote Doppelganger. I wrote all the music first, which is usually how I write. And the lyrics came from like a journal entry. I was just like bitching about how I feel like I'm on my phone too much, and thinking about how social media, big tech companies design their software with their algorithms and supercomputers to calculate what exactly would hold the human attention span in the most gripping way possible to keep your attention, to have you look at a bunch of ads all the time. Hopefully forever is what they want. I was basically thinking, like, they're essentially creating a digital version of us and analyzing our brains and, like, what would this person want to see? What would keep their attention? Let's take all of their data and construct this profile for this person and show them exactly what they want to see. So we essentially have this, like, digital double version of ourselves that we're, like, fighting against to keep our own attention, you know? So I, like, matched these lyrics with this song, and on the song, the guitar effect, I used a bit quest. The effect on the guitar with the bit quest, there's, like, this pitch shifting effect. So it's, like, this really fuzzed out guitar with, like, an octave pitch shift effect that's, like, mixed in. But the octave is, like, ever so slightly flat. It doesn't go all the way up, so it gives us this really crunchy sound. But I thought it sounded really cool. After the fact, I realized, like, that kind of makes sense with, like, the lyrics of the song, talking about this, like, double version of ourselves that's not really ourselves, almost us, but it's kind of different. So that kind of, like, matches with the effect on the guitar. And the riff that's playing is, like, repeated, but there's, like, a beat chopped off, so it, like, is kind of lopsided, but it, like, circles back around. Kind of fits thematically with the lyrics, which I thought was cool. But again, it's, like, not something I was thinking of at the time. It's just, like, it felt right for those lyrics to go with that song. And then after the fact, I was like, hey, this kind of makes sense. Let's go to some questions from Instagram. Theo.nlyd1 asks, how long did it take you to write the whole album? So I used to be a teacher, taught for 3 years, and I was like, hey, this isn't for me anymore. This sucks. I love to teach, but I just got burned out. It was more like the structure of the school system rather than, like, teaching itself. So I wanted to step away from teaching, try to find something else to do, but I saved up enough money to buy some time to, you know, throw myself at music. While I was teaching for 3 years, I never had enough, like, mental space or time to, like, write or finish an album. So I was like, hey, I got enough money saved up. Let me just take a little sabbatical and try to write an album. So I was, like, basically treating it like a job, you know, writing and recording for, like, 8 hours a day, every day for, like, 3 to 4 months. So I, like, wrote all the songs, got, like, demo versions, then recorded, like, the actual takes. And then once those were all good to go, I sent them off to a man named Bradford Krieger, shout out Brad, up in Rhode Island at Big Nice Studio to mix and master the album. Did a phenomenal job. I reached out to him because I love the band Horse Jumper of Love, and he produced and mixed and mastered their self-titled album, which is phenomenal. Has also done a lot of work with Ben Levin and Bentney and Justice Cow, who I love, in a band called Friendship, which I learned after the fact. I was just like, Brad mentioned them when we were, like, working together, and I checked them out. Another one of my favorite bands. Lots of good stuff going on up there, Boston, Rhode Island area. What the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah, how long did this take? About 3 to 4 months from the writing and recording and mixing and mastering phase. 3 to 4 months-ish. Oh yeah, I did all the recording at my parents' house mostly. They just had big enough room for my drums. Let's see if we can get them in the shot. There they are. Did not fit in my apartment at the time. Now I live in a house, so I can have my drums. But I had to do the drums at my parents' place, and I also, blasted the amps. Did it at my parents' house just so I could be loud, and they were all away at work. Because I was unemployed at the time. Unemployed friend activities on a Tuesday. I recorded everything myself, so that took a long time. I'm learning to not be so precious with a take. If I fuck up, just keep going and then punch in later. But at the time, I would just, if I recorded and I messed up a take, I would, like, redo the whole take because I was like, it has to be a pure take, which is stupid. But that's what I did. Took longer than it should have. The Bartley blog asks, what's your favorite song on the album and why? It's a good question. I never really know how to answer this. I'd probably say Ignorance Ain't Bliss, just because I feel like all of the parts of the song are good, in my humble opinion, unbiased opinion. I thought the lyrics came together really well. The instrumentation's nice. The melodies are nice and catchy. The chorus is nice to like belt. When I play it live, everyone in the crowd like sings along. And like the first time that happened, I like almost like choked up on stage. I was like, people know my song. In the video, which we talked about earlier, just like a lot of emotional connection to it, to the video, and yeah, it's a fun one. I wrote a string section to like play along with it, but just like logistically finding string players to play it didn't really work out. So I just took one of like the counter melodies or harmony melodies from what I wrote in that, and that's like the second guitar part in like the intro. That's like the only part of that I used. But yeah, I thought it turned out cool. I like the harmonica in it, threw the mandolin and the banjo in there, which I don't use often. So it just feels nice and big, and I thought the lyrics were good. Kind of talks about what? I don't know. A lot of people tell me they think it means different things, which I like. So it's like a different song to everybody. Religious deconstruction or like disillusionment from like meritocracy, like working so hard. If I just keep working so hard, I'll eventually get something. If I like trade all this time and effort, I'll like get something out of it. That kind of like being disillusioned with that kind of way of thinking, kind of stuff like that. Kind of like a Faustian, like making a deal with the devil kind of thing that you didn't really know you made. You got like swindled into it. But yeah, everyone kind of tells me different lyrics stand out to them and they think they mean different things, which is kind of nice. I like writing lyrics that have some like wiggle room for interpretation. It just makes it more interesting to me. H. Geosits, shout out Harry. How do you feel about capitalism? / what stance does the album take on capitalism? Kind of talked about it already. We are forced to work so we don't die. There's an owning class. There's the working class. The workers work to make the value, and the owners extract as much value as they can without having people revolt against them, so that they can just like continue to get richer and richer. And that's what it is. The album talks a lot about how like we're pulled in a lot of different directions, and a lot of it is because we have to work and trade our time that we would rather be doing other things, making other things, just enjoying our time on this earth, but we cannot for the most part, or not to the extent that we would like, because we have to pay the bills, and the bills are paid to the rich. Not saying anything revolutionary here. Working sucks. Working on things you don't enjoy sucks. Working hard on things you do enjoy is cool. But if we all had food and healthcare and a place to live, then we wouldn't be scared of becoming homeless, and then we wouldn't like work as hard for the shareholders. And you got to think about the shareholders. They're people too. Severly_Colin asks, which song did you have the most fun with the writing process? And what was the hardest song to get a final cut? Most fun with the writing process. I don't know. They're all so different. The song Actors was kind of a weird, oddball one that was in the way that I wrote it. I came up with the music for that one. I came up with like the guitar part, like the intro guitar part on the acoustic. That was like a voice memo that I had on my phone. And I was like on vacation with my mom and my sister, and we were like on this train ride, and it was kind of long, so I was just like messing around on GarageBand on my phone. I like imported the voice memo. It was just like messing around with like melodies and a bass line, and came up with basically the rest of the song. So that was kind of a weird one because I never write that way. It was just like I wanted to write something and I didn't have any instruments. I just had a voice memo in my phone, so I was like, let me make something in GarageBand. I was away from any instruments and showed myself you can still make something cool. A few of the songs I had like the riffs for a long time. Like on Saltburn, I had that riff for probably 7 years. It was just something I would like play on guitar every now and then when I would like pick it up and just like play with some like echo effects. But I was like, this isn't really a song. This is just like, I'm just like messing around. Played it one time and I was like, what if I just like, I keep playing this, so I feel like it needs to be a song. So I was like, let me just like write some other shit with it. And yeah, so I made a song, and now I don't play that riff when I pick up the guitar anymore because it's finished. So I guess that's whenever I pick up a guitar and I keep playing the same thing, that thing probably wants to be a song. And same thing with Commercial Violence, that main riff in that one. Well, I kind of wrote that around the Saltburn time, so probably also 7 years ago. Kept playing it when I would pick up a guitar, and kind of same thing. I was like, this thing wants to be a song. I just keep putting it off to make it anything, I guess. Those were kind of cool, where I was like, you know, you can recycle old ideas and just like make them new. You don't have to like torture yourself with like playing that thing anymore, you know, because you flesh it out. I have some things like that at the moment where I pick up the guitar and I like play this riff that's cool, but I like haven't made it a song yet. So yeah, I guess that answers the question. What was the hardest song to get a final cut? I talked about doing like 100 takes over and over and over again of things. I need to stop doing that. I don't really do that as much anymore. I think Ninth Mage was one of those where I like kept like hammering away at it. I wrote the solo for that one different than how I normally write solos. I usually just like improvise a solo, or I'll do like multiple takes of a solo, just like improvising, and I'll like pick the best pieces of those takes. But with Ninth Mage, I wanted to like write a guitar solo, which I hadn't done before, and so that took longer. That one was kind of hard just because I was like writing in a way that I hadn't before, which is kind of usually how I try to write. It's like I'll think of a new technique or a way to approach a song, and I'll try to write it that way, just to see what would happen, you know, just experimenting all the time. Usually most of my solos are just like improv. Don't feel like I'm answering these questions very well. Sarah B asks, any big musical / sound inspirations? Yeah, I got a lot. Big ones, I really like Frank Zappa. If you've ever listened to me talk for like 5 minutes, I've probably mentioned Frank Zappa. His just like approach to music, that music could be anything. Like there's no reason to like limit yourself and what you can make. I like that philosophy. Kind of contributed to the sound of this album. It's like all over the place. Yeah, so I like Zappa. I like his like approach to improvising, as like improvising is like a way of like spontaneously composing and you know, throwing yourself at it and just like seeing what happens. His work ethic is crazy. You know, he wrote like 50 something albums in his lifetime, and he died in his 50s. And then 50 plus more albums of like live and unreleased stuff after he died. So yeah, crazy guy. I love Modest Mouse's like early stuff a lot, and they're like raw, almost like hardcore-ish kind of approach. Isaac Brock was like a singer that I was like listening to growing up and being like, oh, you don't have to be a good singer to sing, and it'll still sound good. You know, he has a lisp and he like screams and kind of pitchy, but it sounds good because it fits with the music. So, you know, trying to find that in my own music is, you know, something I like. Phil Elverum of The Microphones and Mount Erie, another big inspiration. How his songs are kind of just like poems set to music. You know, they're kind of, they don't necessarily rhyme. Another guy who is very like a soft singer, pitchy, but like fits so well and like beautifully with his music. Yeah, I relate to that as well. I don't think of myself as a good singer, but you know, you try, you get a little better. You write things that fit with your voice. Those are big ones. Who else? I love King Gizzard, another band that's like all over the place, genre-wise. you can do anything just because it, you know, run with an idea, try new things, experiment all the time. Also just like have fun with the music. You know, it doesn't have to be like super serious. Andrew Creekbaum asks, which song took the longest to write? I mean, if you count Salt Urn, if I came up with the riff 7 years prior to finishing the song, I guess that song took 7 years. But I wasn't like writing it for 7 years. It was like I wrote a chunk, then put it away for 7 years, and then finished it. But usually the instrumental stuff is like easier to make for me. I get hung up on the lyrics. I have it in my head that like the lyrics need to be interesting on their own. It's just my own roadblock. But I like the lyrics that I write, so I don't think of it as something bad. But could I loosen up and just write a song that I think is like silly lyrically, or just like one line that's repeated the whole time? Sure, I could do that, but I don't know why I'm hung up on that. The lyrics always have to be like interesting. Like if I just read the lyrics on their own, are they still kind of interesting? That's kind of like my litmus test when I'm like writing lyrics. But yeah, maybe I should stop doing that. I don't know. I like my lyrics, so I don't know what the answer is. What's a song with like the lyrics that took a long time? The Ignorance Ain't Bliss lyrics came out pretty quickly together, but I was like rewording very small details for a long time. In some of the songs I was just like changing lyrics like right before I sung them. I was like, oh, this doesn't work, let me just like change the line, or take out a whole like part like right before I sang it. I don't know, I don't really remember which one took the longest, because I was trying to like focus on one song at a time, but it's just like truly not how my brain works. If I like have an idea for something, I'll like jump to that song and like add that part. So I don't know if that's actually like an actual good way to work, but it is the way that I work. What's next? Alex French of the Alex French Revolution asks, was there anything you were nervous or afraid of leaving in the final project? It's a good question. I keep talking about Ignorance Ain't Bliss, but I had never like belted in a song before, and I felt like the chorus in that, I was like belting. Like I said, I'm not super confident in my voice, but that was a song where I was like gaining more confidence in my voice. In a way, I was kind of nervous of like doing that as like the vocal delivery, just because it's like something I hadn't done before, and my voice isn't the best, but wanted a chorus that like you could yell. Also on that line in the second chorus of Blood, Money, Honey, Sweat, where I have like the yelling harmonizing, which I kind of took from Isaac Brock of Modest Mouse. Also, I hadn't done that kind of vocal delivery before. That's like actually like yelling. I thought it worked, but I guess because like the voice is like your body, like the instrument of your body, if people don't like your voice, then it feels like they don't like your body or like you. Whereas if you write like a guitar riff that people don't like, it's like less you for some reason. Or, you know, that's the way like I think about it in my stupid brain. So like, what the fuck? I'm tangled in these chords. I guess that's the way I kind of like think about singing, or that's why I've like been a nervous singer, just because it's like so intimate, because it's your body. And we're back. Alex also asks, did you ever surprise yourself while writing anything? I was kind of surprised that I left in the songs get harder towards the end of the album, like Ninth Mage, Commercial Violence, and Doppelganger. They're like kind of heavier songs. And when I wrote them, I wasn't like sure if I was gonna like keep those in this album or like have a just heavier album with those songs on them later. So I guess in a way that was surprising to me that I decided to leave those in, but I just decided like some of the songs sound pretty different from each other already, so like why not just like keep pushing it and like leave these in and just kind of let it like build towards the end of the album. A lot of the lyrics I'm really happy with, like in Ignorance Ain't Bliss. I keep talking about the song, but I thought the chorus for that was like one of the stronger things that I wrote. Ignorance ain't bliss, it's a sin. Will give me my sin again. A little quotation from Romeo and Juliet. Benjamin Britton asks, which song has the most tracks on it and how many? I think Endless Pleasure, honestly, has the most. And I don't know why it has the most. It's not like that huge of a song. It's just like, I had a lot of like random instruments. I think there's like 30 to 40, maybe 50. Didn't need to do all that. Also here it has a lot because I recorded like 20 different recorders, almost as like an organ. Give it like an organ sound. And I recorded like 5 or 6 different guitars just to make it like a wall of sound. Doing too much, some would say. Levi asks, what kind of honey would you sweat if you could sweat honey? Incredible question. I really like hot honey. I feel like I would sweat some hot honey. That stuff's good. On some like cottage cheese toast, give a little spice. He also asks, what were your inspirations for Blood Money Honey Sweat? It's another song that the lyrics kind of came, the chorus came very quickly, and then I had to like reverse engineer the verses and be like, how the hell do I arrive at this chorus? The chorus, basically I was thinking of like blood, sweat, and tears, taking like a cliche kind of saying, but like making it interesting. So like, selling my blood for money, sweating sweeter than honey, and honey, don't you go crying. Don't you know that I'm trying? It's kind of where that came from. Just think about like blood, sweat, and tears. And the first line that I came up with that was selling my blood for money, because when I was in college, I used to sell my plasma. Got the track marks to prove it on. You can't really see him. Maybe you can see him. I don't know. But I got him, baby. I was in there getting some beer money. Shout out Jacob Boss for putting me on to that. Yeah, felt like I was a cow getting milked in there. And you get to like see your blood go around a machine, and it around like a centrifuge, and it like separates your blood from the plasma, and then it pumps your blood back into your body and keeps the plasma. It pumps you up with some saline and some anticoagulant so it doesn't clot, and it feels like ice in your veins, and you taste metal in your mouth. So, you know, formative years for me. Got some good lyrics out of it, and a few dollars at least. And I was trying to like write from the perspective of a person who's like, if you work hard, eventually you'll win at the end. You know, retiring at 85, but now I can look forward to the rest of my life. Hopefully I can buy a home by then. Believing in trickle down economics. I'm down on my knees. Trickle down on me. Asking for some sweet relief from Ronald Reagan. His partner is crying, but he's trying. Don't you know that he's trying? What else are we working with? London asks, will you ever drop a rap album? No. Tate asks, what are your biggest musical influences and how have they changed over time? We talked about some earlier. How have they changed over time? My first CD I ever bought, very embarrassing. I bought a Rascal Flatts CD. I don't remember what it was called. It was the one that had What Hurts the Most on it, with the blue cover. And then I fell in love with the beloved Weird Al Yankovic and his parodies on YouTube when I was a wee lad. I was obsessed. I loved his like polka covers of things. A lot of like popular music, I first heard the Weird Al version, so anytime I like heard the actual songs, I'd be like, this is Weird Al. I loved Weird Al. I mean, I still love Weird Al. He was the first show I ever went to, first concert when I was 10 years old. Came out in the fat suit. It was awesome. And then I got into Guitar Hero when I was 10 or 11, I believe. That's when I like actually started listening to music. Before then, I wasn't like super interested in music. I liked Weird Al because he was just like poking fun at things, and I liked that. And then once I started playing Guitar Hero, I was like, music's kind of cool. Who knew? And then my dad always played guitar. Growing up, he would just like read tabs and like play along to songs that he liked. And once I started showing an interest in Guitar Hero, he was like, do you want to learn? And so like he taught me how to read tabs, and then went on from there. So basically the whole Guitar Hero 3 soundtrack I love. Got into like Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden and AC/DC, as the kids do, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, whatnot. And then kind of took off from there. Really liked James Taylor. Who are some of the people that my dad... Oh, Tom Petty. My dad showed me Tom Petty. I loved Tom Petty. Rush was my dad's favorite band, so I also got into Rush and Styx and Van Halen. Don't remember if I said that. I saw Van Halen with my dad. Journey, Cheap Trick, Heart, saw them all with my dad. A lot of classic dad rock bands. And yeah, got really into Zappa when I was in college. Modest Mouse, like later high school. Mount Erie microphones in like late high school as well. I really love Fire Tools. Shout out Fire Tools. They make truly some of the most insane music I've ever heard in my life. Another artist that like mixes up their sound a lot. They do a lot of like jazz fusion, experimental, like sound collage, black metal, 80s like news forecast music, vaporwavy. I don't know, it's crazy. It's some of the coolest stuff ever. I love Fire Tools. And what's really weird is they just like randomly messaged me on Instagram one day, and they took a video that I posted of me just like improvising on piano, and they were like, hey, this video came across my Instagram and I thought it was cool, so I like made a song out of it, and they just like remixed it and put a ton of effects on it and like layered some like sound design thing that they made. Crazy. And I had never talked to them before, and they just like reached out to me and they're like, hey, I made a song out of something that you made. Here you go. You can release it if you want. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Literally like brought me to tears. I was like on my way to work and like listening to this thing that one of the people that I love made out of the blue. Internet's crazy, man. So I'll probably release that sometime. Hopefully soon. Shauna asks, how was the experience of making this album different than the last one? Talking about Unmoored. When I wrote Unmoored, I really had no idea what I was doing recording-wise and mixing-wise, and especially mastering-wise. I did everything on my own. That one was like a big learning. I like considered Unmoored like learning how to make an album more so than like making an album, if that makes any sense. But when I like listen back to it, it's just like, didn't really know what I was doing. The album has a certain sound. They all kind of like sound similar to each other. But maybe it's just like growing as an artist. You look back on things you made and you're like, I could have done that better now, knowing what I know now. But they were songs written at a moment in time. Post-college, I was like, I want to make an album, so let's just set up some mics and make something. Always Elsewhere felt like I was trying to do everything the right way, recording-wise, like more in-depth into like recording techniques and like recording the drums and, you know, miking amps properly and, you know, making sure things are in phase. And I think the main difference is like I was trying to think more of like having my recording engineer hat on for this album, like trying to do things in the most correct way, if that exists. Just doing more research on like the production side of things. Another thing that I did differently is on Unmoored, I started with the guitars and the bass and everything else, and then I would do the drums without a click track, record the drums after the guitar, so I'd have to crank everything in my headphones super loud to hear it over the drums. Not to a click, so everything's like really loose and sloppy on Unmoored, which I guess gives it its own kind of sound. On Always Elsewhere, I wanted to like have like demos and scratch tracks and then play to a click, you know, have the scratch tracks for like the structure of the song, play the drums to a click, and then put everything else on top of it. I feel like that helped them, definitely be more in time. I brought in a lot more instruments on Always Elsewhere, like banjo, mandolin, bunch of recorders, played harmonica, different types of guitars, tracked like different types of guitars, different amps. I experimented more on Always Elsewhere. Like I was saying, I was trying to do things the right way, but I was also like experimenting more. I found this cheapo guitar practice amp at Goodwill for like a few dollars, and I used this microphone that I got from my granddad. It's like a Radio Shack mic from the 70s or 80s. It has a certain kind of sound to it, but I like sang through this into the amp, recorded the amp for like Commercial Violence and Doppelganger, just to give it a distorted, digital, kind of blown out sound for like the backing vocals, just to like differentiate it from the main vocals. I don't know, those are some things that are different. Mostly like production stuff. Charlie Cisneros of Sorensic asks, what were some of the effects used on the album? I play music with Alex French and Charlie Cisneros. I play live in their bands, and they play in my live band. All the music on Always Elsewhere I recorded, but they helped me play them live. And we recorded Charlie's new album coming out, Spilled Milk, coming out soon, folks. Yeah, so what were some of the effects used on the album? I kind of talked about like the vocals through the shitty guitar amp. I talked about the Bit Quest on Doppelganger. I have like a Klon fake pedal for like my overdrive. I have a Walrus Audio Julia chorus. Played through my deluxe reverb amp, cranked it, get some crunch. I think I used a Big Muff on here for like the really big fuzzed out guitars. Not a whole lot of like effects on my guitars, mostly just like distortion kind of stuff. Nothing too interesting, but like other instruments, like I was talking about, I use the recorders on here to make an organ effect. There's also a child's organ. Let me see if I can show it. That organ with the keyboard on top of it. I used that on here in the intro, that like little part with the acoustic guitars. Brad did some stuff on the songs. He was the mixer, so I'm sure he had some crazy plugins he was running stuff through. On the synth solo in Salt Urn, I was using like a sketch cassette to like jangle up this like synth sound, warbly and weird. And I think that is all the questions that I have, folks. The video is definitely longer than I thought it was going to be, so I'll have to whittle it down. But yeah, I'm currently working on a new album. Trying to do something different than Always Elsewhere, where I said I was like trying to do things the right way recording wise. This time I'm trying to like record everything through this like Radio Shack cassette player, and just forcing a limitation on myself in that way. That way I don't have to overthink the recording as much as I did on Always Elsewhere. Just like I've been saying, a new way to write keeps things interesting for me. A lot of the songs on this album are going to be more like experimenting with like ambient kind of sounds, like some regular songs as well, but things are a little more stripped back, not as many layers. Yeah, just seeing how many different ways I can approach using this like cassette recorder, and we'll see how that goes. If you stuck around, thanks. Yeah, my album Always Elsewhere is out wherever you listen to music. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for being interested in this Q&A. I kind of like this. I want to try to maybe make more videos, maybe some educational stuff or like songwriting process kind of stuff. I kind of got that teaching itch. We'll see what happens, but thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later, folks.